10 years ago, a vintage fighter jet plummeted down from the sky into one of the busiest roads in Sussex, killing 11 men. Most of them weren't even watching the Shoreham airshow when they were engulfed in the fireball. 23-year-old Jacob Schilt and his friend Matthew Grimstone were driving to play in a football match. They never arrived.
It was catastrophic, really, for all of us.
It's obviously just changed our lives forever, and it's a huge reminder every 22nd of August, because it's such a public anniversary. It's destroyed our lives, really.
All this time later, that no one's really accepted accountability.
That does make us very angry.
But not surprised. Because that isn't the nature of institutions.
The 1950s jet came smashing down on this stretch of the A27, a dual carriageway which runs right next to the airfield at Shoreham. The pilot, Andy Hill, who survived, had been trying to fly a loop as part of his display routine, but he wasn't going fast enough and didn't reach enough height to be able to pull out of the manoeuvre safely. A jury at the Old Bailey subsequently found him not guilty of gross negligence manslaughter, although a coroner ruled the 11 men had been unlawfully killed.
The rules around air shows have been tightened up since the crash, with stricter risk assessments, minimum height requirements and checks on pilots. But both Jacob and Matthew's families believe the regulator, the Civil Aviation Authority, still isn't doing enough to protect people using the roads near air shows.
It's quite shocking, really.
It's definitely an afterthought about third parties. We talk about Duxford and how they're still flying low over the M11. That's taken a long time after 2015, if they still haven't done it by now.
Some experts claim the CAA also has questions to answer about their response to a previous incident involving Andy Hill, after the organisers of the 2014 Southport Airshow issued an emergency stop to his display because he flew too low and too close to the crowd. The Air Accident Investigations Branch later found that while the CAA had had an informal discussion with him, no further action was taken and it wasn't reported. Retired pilot Steve Coleman says they had a statutory duty to have done so.
You have to ask the question, if the Southport incident had been investigated, was Shoreham less likely or more likely to have occurred? And I think there can only be one answer.
The CAA told us they did investigate the Southport incident and regulatory action was taken. They insist all the recommendations and safety improvements in the reviews carried out after the Shoreham crash were fully implemented, and that airshows continue to be subject to rigorous oversight to ensure the highest safety standards. But the families of those killed still believe much more should be done.
Well, Amanda's here with me, and Amanda, so clear from your report there that families are still obviously upset, but also pretty angry and still want answers.
Well, yes, indeed. They've had such a frustrating, difficult time dealing with all the authorities and institutions, really, ever since this happened. I mean, I covered it at the time, 10 years ago in 2015. They had a very long wait for the Air Accident Investigation Bureau to carry out their very painstaking investigation into the reasons why what happened. Then there was a criminal trial at which Andy Hill was cleared of gross negligence manslaughter. Then there was a long delay for the coroner's inquest to be held. There were then proceedings where Andy Hill attempted to get his licence back, but then that was rejected. And going forward, I think you can just feel that sense of frustration that although there have been many regulatory changes since this happened, the Shoreham Airshow itself has never run again, and many other air shows have in fact closed down because of the more stringent regulations now around the distance between a display and the crowds, the more complicated risk assessments that have to be carried out, the fact that air shows have to pay more to the CAA to try and enforce these regulations with more inspectors and so on. But there are still these outstanding questions. The families have raised, for example, the case of the Duxford Air Show, where you can't have an acrobatic performance over the M11 motorway near nearby, but planes are allowed to fly over that motorway at just 200 foot above the road. They think that's an issue considering what happened at Shoreham. Have been previous crashes where, for example, the engine of a plane went shooting over the motorway there. The CAA have introduced a review in which they are now looking at the safety of bystanders in connection with air shows. That was only launched in April this year. It's not going to report back until next year, and for the families after so long, it's just deeply infuriating not to have had those changes made already.
Yeah, a real insight into what they've been going through over the last 10 years. Amanda, thanks very much indeed.